Hey, it's Sean from Tested. I am coming to you today from my home workshop for a change. I've been with Tested for quite a while, doing things with Adam. We've done various projects ranging, I think, going back to Hellboy, Ghostbusters, a lot of different things. And I do a lot of stuff on my own at home. I do a lot of prop stuff, particularly with Ghostbusters, and I like doing a lot of uh, upgrades to pre-existing stuff. And that's what we're going to tackle today with this 1/10 scale Back to the Future DeLorean that TOMY put out not long ago. It was a Kickstarter, so I don't believe that it is available off the shelf right now, but I got this because it was just a really good size. It wasn't like the Hot Toys one is really great, but it's really big and I don't have the space for that. And it's not so small that you lose a lot of detail. So it's just a really nice scale that you got a lot of good detail on it. And you had the added bonus that it perfectly fits the existing NECA Back to the Future figures. So you can just pop them right in and they didn't have to worry about making anything. And it has some other nice features, like it's an all metal body. It does light up on the interior and the exterior, and it even has a cool smoke effect, which will kick in here in a minute. But as always with these types of things, there's always room for improvement. And we've done a lot of this kind of stuff on Tested where we've taken things, existing kits or existing items. There it goes. Pretty good. Where we've taken existing kits and like jazzed them up a little bit, done some weathering, done some upgrades, and make them like look a little bit better. So I've been kind of slowly working my way through stuff on this. And one of the things that I wanted to do was the original DeLorean and Back to the Future had Goodyear Eagle GT tires, which were prominently labeled, as you can see on mine. And the TOMY version just came with plain black tires that didn't have this on it. Because just, it's another printing process that they're, saving some money on. So I wanted to add those to it. The problem you run into is when you get really, really fine text like the Goodyear would be at this scale, and it is open lettering where it's just a very thin outline with the opening in the middle. You run into the problem where what do you use to make them look good? Because typically most model kits would use something like Waterslide decals, which have been used for decades in model kits. It would look something like a sheet like this, right? That you would cut out the part that you need, you would dip this in water, and then you would slide it onto the surface. And water slides are great. They're really thin. They conform really well to surfaces. And especially like if you had something like had rivets on or something, it'll go right around that, and they're great. However, in this case, if you put these on, you're going to get something like this, where anywhere there's an opening, you're going to get some hazing, or you can see where the blank spots are on that label. So I wanted to avoid that. And other options for that type of thing is you might use like vinyl cutouts. So like I have an example here of these are stripes for a ghost trap kit. So you use a vinyl cutter to cut this out. You put it on a carrier sheet so that then you can peel this off and put it on your item and it looks really nice and clean. The problem with the vinyl transfers is that you can't tend to do really, really fine stuff like this. Because it's using a blade to cut out the vinyl. And it just can't handle something that fine unless you have like a really, really expensive machine. So what I've gone with in this case are dry transfers. So it's another type of labeling that you can do. They can be called rub-on transfers, dry transfers, etc. They've been around for a really long time. Some of the original ones were something that you might have seen before called Letraset. Which would be typically they did a lot of font pages. And basically this is a pressure sensitive adhesive that's on a carrier sheet. You lay it down on the object, you rub it or burnish it down, and then it transfers with the pressure of your burnishing. And it usually has like a backing sheet to keep it from sticking to anything. And they made all kinds of different fonts and symbols and stuff. And this is like an old Letraset catalog. And they had tons and tons of stuff, anything from fonts to symbols and stuff like that. So here, I'll put some under the close-up camera, but like they just had all kinds of stuff, all different colors, all different fonts, and they were very popular. If you needed something to look really, really clean without leaving any kind of halo around there, without getting custom painting done, you could use dry transfers. They have gotten harder to find. Letraset is long gone. I picked these up on eBay, for example. You also may remember dry transfers if you're as old as I am. A little something called Presto Magic. I don't know if you guys remember Presto Magic, but Presto Magic, they would come with a scene. Like, so we got a Return of the Jedi scene, Jabba's palace. I'll put this under the close-up camera. So you would have a scene, and then it would come with a sheet of transfers that you could cut out or just like place, and you would then rub with your pencil to place them on the scene. So yeah, Presto Magic were very popular. They had all kinds of like Scooby-Doo, Return of the Jedi, just generic ones. But these were all done as dry transfers as well. What you'll find when you get really old dry transfers is they may not want to transfer anymore because the self-adhesive is kind of dried up. So sometimes you can get them to go with a lot of pressure, but they don't always work. But anyway, dry transfers kind of, fell out of favor, but you can still find some places that do it. It just tends to be hard to find, and they're kind of expensive. So usually I make it worth my while by doing really big sheets where you're getting a lot of labels on one sheet, and it kind of brings the price down per label. And then I've done these with Ghostbuster stuff because they were used a lot on the Ghostbusters equipment. And then if you're getting in bulk, it makes it a little bit more reasonable. So with the dry transfers, I'm going to show you a Ghostbusters example that I did. I had two different types that I tried. So first I found these, which I think were just called rub-on adhesives. And basically, this is more like a typical sticker with actual sticky adhesive on it. It is on a carrier sheet, and you can see how you would peel it off. You'd lay the carrier sheet down on it, rub it down, and then you end up with something like this guy, which looks pretty good, but you can see there is a halo around it. And so if you want to, and it's kind of real shiny, which is fine if that's the finish you need. But I got dry transfers made, and you can get dry transfers made in about any kind of color. If you really want to pay a lot, you can sometimes even get them in multicolors, and they can do like Pantone matching and stuff like that. So this was something I designed in Illustrator. It's has a wax backing sheet to keep it from sticking to anything. What it looks on the back. All right. And basically what you do is you cut this out of the sheet. You then tape it down on the item that you want to rub it onto, and then you rub it and burnish it. I usually like using something like an orange stick, like a cuticle stick. Honestly, sometimes the best is just the back of your fingernail. But you want to make sure that this is a clean surface. You've rubbed it down really well, and then you can kind of see what that looks like compared to the more traditional rub-on adhesive, and then compared to, say, a Waterslide. And that is what the route that I went with for the tires, because you can get really, really fine detail because it's basically printing it like on, I'm assuming some kind of like an inkjet type thing, and then it cures, and then it's slightly tacky on the back, and then they put the protective carrier sheet and send it off to you. So you can design your dry transfers or whatever, something like I used Illustrator. So I found a picture of a vintage Goodyear Eagle GT tire, and I brought that into my 3D modeling software, and I drew splines over top of that, which then I exported to the Illustrator to make a file to send off to the printer. And basically, what I did is I looked around trying to find a font that was a fairly close match to the original Goodyear, and I just formed it on an arc, and that got me in the ballpark. But it still wasn't exact, especially since it was a vintage tire. So then I had to go in and tweak every little letter to make sure the spacing was correct. And like I had to do the little winged foot from scratch. And once that was done, I put them on a layout sheet in Illustrator and sent that off to the printer. And then I ended up with one big sheet that had many of these little guys on it. So I cut these all out, and then they go off with their little sheet, and then they have front and rear, and you cut each one out, and you cut them down the middle so that you have a top and bottom for the tire. And then you tape it down. Since I already put them on the tires, I'm just using this to demonstrate. So I've taped it down here with some Scotch tape. I've tried to keep the tape off of the text itself as much as possible, just because it can interfere with the rub down. I'm removing the backing sheet, and it's really important that you get this like really down securely so that it doesn't shift at all, because these are kind of finicky. And I've also cleaned the surface before doing this. I used eyeglasses cleaner because it's fairly mild. It's obviously okay for plastics because you use it on your glasses all the time, and it does a pretty good job of cleaning the surfaces. But always test your cleaning, whatever you're cleaning with, on your inconspicuous spot before you go full bore on it. I was able to use alcohol on the tires or eyeglass cleaning solution on the tires without causing any problem. All right, so we've got this tape down, and we're going to rub this down. So some people use pencils. Some people, like I said, use like a little spudger or an orange stick, and you just want to rub along the surface. Oh man, look, see, I already messed up. Actually, that's the guideline, so that's fine. But on colored ones, like say like red, you can really tell when it lays down because you can kind of see it release from the backing or the carrier. White is much harder to tell. So what I do is, once I think I got it pretty good, I will peek under it to make sure nothing is still sticking to the carrier. So this is actually a guideline for the tire, which normally wouldn't get rubbed on, so that doesn't really matter. But it looks like everything is transferred okay. My general advice is, even if you think it's good and it's all transferred, give it another rub down. And honestly, like I said, my favorite burnishing is just the back of my fingernail, but lots of other things will work as well. All right, so once you're good, and you want to be really careful that whatever you tape this down with, you don't get the tape on the transfer, because that could pull it off as well. In general, these are pretty durable, but I have heard that you can clear coat these. I've seen people using clear acrylic to put on top of them to seal them. Typically, I've been using these for a lot of Ghostbusters stuff, and I just have left them alone because with the Ghostbusters stuff, they get beat up and damaged, and I don't mind getting little dings and scratches in it because it adds to the weathering. After I put these in my shop, a very nice customer got a hold of me and pointed me to a UK model company called Mike Lane Models. And I didn't even know about these when I made this, but they make these exact type of things for like the Hot Toys sized DeLorean and a lot of other vehicles. And they're very similar to this. And they have something called tire dressing, which they will put on top of this to seal it, to give it a little extra bit of protection. I have not personally done the acrylic seal yet, but it seems like that is the choice. The sealant of choice for most people is like a clear acrylic. You would want to be cautious of what you're using. Like, I wouldn't want to use a gloss sealant on the tires. You don't want to make sure to get a matte so that it looks right. But otherwise, I usually just leave them alone, and they've been pretty good. If you do mess up with applying these, you can use some alcohol to clean them off. It will get a little smeary at first, but just go over it once or twice with clean cloths and some alcohol, and it will generally clean off all the dry transfers. So dry transfer labels also can be called rub-on labels, and they come in a variety of different colors. Sometimes you can get different finishes like satin or glossy, depending on where you're getting them done from. I'll leave a recommendation for a place that I've been using if you want to check them out. Also check out Mike Lane Models for a lot of different kind of transfers like this, which I just recently found out about. But if you have any questions or comments or tips for dry transfers or other types of labels, we would love to hear them in the comments. And I'll give you one more show of the finished product here. Yeah. The dry transfer specifically for the TOMY 110 scale Back to the Future DeLorean. Hope this was some good tips for you, and look forward to talking to you again.